Hey y'all, this is TCA Gaming, and in this video I am going to go through the top 10 most expensive cards that I have on hand in my collection. Now this does not include anything that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic, non-Pokemon is off the table. So this is just items that I have on hand and that are for Pokemon, so it doesn't include anything in the vault, the eBay vault as well. I do have some trophies and things there that would definitely make this list, but they are not included. And then it's probably going to turn into more like a top 50 list because I started pulling cards out of my collection. I was like, hey, that looks pretty cool. That looks pretty cool. I don't look at it too very often, but sometimes when I do, I just it gives me a little nostalgic kick. And so I thought I'd pull out some other cards that were decently expensive or unique or something like that. So we're going to start out with those. And then when we get to the top 10 list, I will make sure that you guys know that we're in that top 10 list. And I'm actually going to give you some values that I think that they would go for if they went in auction today. But a lot of this is very speculative as well. All right, so very first card, we have this right here. It's a pristine gold medal Charizard. This one is probably the cheapest card, or one of the cheapest cards that I have in this video. I'm not really sure what these go for. I know that when the grading standards did change over, the regular gem mints were bringing about 1,000 or something. It was something like that, but I think they've dropped off pretty hard since then because I'd sold one in a buy now, maybe 600-700 bucks, but I'm not really sure where they're at anymore. Pristine is a step up, so who knows where it's at now. I thought this was pretty cool. I don't know where this one would go, but this is like the very first Topps Charizard, and it's rainbow foil, which is the toughest uh, version to grade. There's silver foil, there's rainbow foil. There's 5 different prints. First print, it has this little blue Topps logo on the back side, and then this is also a pristine tin. It's in, really nice shape. These Topps cards were tough to grade because of how the corners would get dinged so easily, and even with rainbow foil cards, even if you pull these out of packs now, usually they're chipped around the edges, so it's kind of like a no damage Ninetale situation where if you didn't pull it out of a pack back in the day, you're probably not going to find them now. What else we have here? Oh yeah, I got 2 of these. Uh, we have 2 staff pre-release Charizards. I think these are. It's got to be one of the toughest tins to find just for like the regular Evolutions Charizard Holo, and then this is the staff version. These come loose in a box with energies, and a lot of them were bent. Many of them come with edge wear damage to them, and it's already a tough card to grade. So I think this is probably one of the most limited Charizards that was on the modern English side, and it's got a cool little stamp, and it's pretty tough to get in a tin. Not sure on the value. I would estimate around $5,000 for those right now, but again, I could be off. Here's another one that's pretty tough from Generation 4. We have a Charizard G Level X. This is the Diamond Pearl 45 version. So while this card is going to be, or was much more easily attained than the pack version because you could get it in every 10, it was much tougher to grade because back then those window tins had these little indentation marks that you would find 1, 2, 3, 4 spots because they pushed the card in there, and that card was really what held down the 4 packs below it. And so a lot of them have these indentation marks up top, and just one of those will drop this thing down to a 5 or 6 when you're grading this with PSA. All right, next up we have a Plasma Storm Charizard. Very tough card to find in PSA 10 condition. The centering already is pretty rough, but I remember grading 42 of these pack fresh right there at release. I was buying them offline. I was opening some, mostly buying them online for like $40 a piece, and I did not get a single 10. This one I ended up buying from somebody. I can't remember what I paid. I would assume it's in the 5,000 range. It might be less. It might be a little bit more. I'm not really sure. I thought this was a pretty cool card-ass Prism card. I am going to include some cards here that are not technically the original Pokemon TCG. It'd be like outside. It'd be non-TCG. Like this right here from this card-ass Bandai. But I thought it was a pretty cool version of this card. It's nice holographic, got a cool artwork that you don't see on the English side anywhere, at least that I can think of. All right, this one right here. This is a square cut Houndoom. This is already a really tough card to grade. It's got the hollow bleed going on, and it's square cut, and it pulled the 10. Again, I don't know what this would bring in auction. Might only bring a couple $1,000s. I wouldn't sell it for less than 1,000. I guess if I stuck it through auction, it'd go for whatever it went for. But just the regular Houndoom itself in a 10 brings close to that. I don't know about CGC 10. There's a lot of nuances here with this card. Some are good for the actual price, the final price. Some kind of take away. So I'm not sure where this would go, but it's not the only square cut card that I have in this video. I'm going to show a few more later on. Here we have an Entei first edition PSA 10 from NeoRev. Again, this could be between $5,000 and $10,000. I've seen them as high as 10 to 12, but I know a lot of cards have dialed back these this past year or two. So it's still pretty low pop, hard to grade. One of the most popular cards from Neo Revelation. It was, I think that was the first time that card come out on the English side at Entei. This right here, this is a Skarmory from Expedition. I thought I'd throw this one in here because this is one that people might not expect. That is expensive. I remember when I graded this, somebody offered me $700, and that was a pretty big deal. But I kept it, and I'm glad I did. I think the only one that I saw on eBay that was available for this is like $10K. I doubt it would bring even half that, but it is very low pop. It's tough to grade. This holofoil is notorious for having print lines. All right, next up, this is probably either the highest or the second highest card from Expedition, and we have this Mew. I got this one from Gem Mint. Thanks, man. I did pay low five figures for this, very low five figures, but it was expensive. I think I could get it for less now, but it's still a pretty expensive card. Got the Mew, super nice swirl there on the right side if you're looking at it from the front. I guess if you're looking at the Mew side, if you are Mew, it would be your left side. But yeah, very cool card there. All right, so Neo Discovery Yanma. Again, I think this is a $5,000 to $10,000 card. I paid more than that myself when I bought it. I bought it during the hype, but it's a very low pop card from Neo Discovery. It's not the most popular. You've got the Moonbryon, you've got Espeon, you've got cards like that that people really want from Neo Discovery, but Yanma's probably the most expensive, or second to Moonbryon, depending on how many of these are out there at that particular time and what buyers in the market. But these are, again, very notorious for having print lines. This video might be a lot longer than I thought. All right, here we have a Shining Magikarp. This one, again, is square cut, but it is the very first Shining that we've seen. Well, I guess Shining Gyarados was the first. It was 65. Shining Magikarp was 66. But again, pulled the 10. This did used to be a 9.5 blue label, so it was crossed, or when the grading scale changed and they changed the labels, this was the old 9.5 Gem Mint become the new 10 Gem Mint. So it does have that 10 grade on there, which a lot of people, they really like seeing that 10, including myself. So I do believe that increased some of the value, even though the card itself did not change. Here we have a Suicune, same deal. This is a very tough card to grade in a 10, as is because of the print lines that are usually very evident on Neo Revelation cards. But this one pulled a 10, and it is square cut. May have a few more square cuts, but I think that's it from NeoRev. All right, so we have a Charizard FPO 9.5. I would have thought this one would be worth more just because of like I guess how it was printed. These are test cards. You can see it's missing HP. It's got the word medium there. It actually says 4 position only on it. But I did auction one of these recently, and it went for I think it was like $7,800. So I would say that is probably the current value for what this is. But you're looking at a Gem Mint copy. I should have attempted see if I could get this one across. All right, here we have a Blastoise Trainer Deck B. These the Trainer Deck Bs used to be like there was a guy who had a bunch of them. There was a small window where people could really buy these things, and they could have these sealed decks for like $70. Wish I had bought more of them, but I did not. But anyways, I do have this in a Gem Mint 10. Very rare cards, the only non-holo base set Blastoise with this artwork that I can think of right offhand. These cards get reprinted so many times, I do forget things. But Trainer Deck B, you can see it's got the red border. Very early type card. I think it would have been really cool if these cards were shadowless as well. All right, now we've got 2 cards right here. We've got the red and the green. I believe the red brings a little bit of a premium to the green. And ironically enough, because this is the new type case and newer cert, it would probably bring a little bit of a premium anyways. But PSA still, as far as I know, does not recognize the 2 different variations here. This is obviously green, this is red, and yeah, pretty cool. Again, I think they're in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. I think I paid close to 10. This is one that you guys probably are wondering, what in the world? Why is there an 8 non-holo Expedition Charizard in here? Well, the reason it is in here is because this is actually an unlimited version. There's no first edition stamp. I can't even remember which side, so I want to say that side. These they're very, very limited, very hard to come by. Honestly, I don't even know what this is worth. Maybe it's in the $5,000 range. Could be less because it's so niche. Very few people even know about it. I believe there is a PSA 10 copy that is out there, which I do not own it. All right, next up we have a 1999-2000 base set Charizard. I believe that this would bring in excess of $10,000. There's no way I'd sell it for less than that. But the reason being because the base set Charizard 99 2000 and regular PSA 10 is probably worth about 8 to 10K, and that's just me assuming that it's come down a little bit since the last time I checked prices. But this is a much more scarce variant, and yeah, I mean the 1999 2000 hollows are pretty tough to come by. All right, next up we have the Blastoise stage error. I think this is probably worth around 10,000, maybe a little bit more, maybe less. We have seen some of the CGC 10s go for right in the 1,500 to 2,000 range. A few go a little higher than that. But the PSA 10 copies, I think there's only 6 or 7 last I checked. And basically it's just missing the word right there for stage. All right, next up. I paid, I want to say 12K for this one. There's probably some people that have bought it since then. I think a few people have auctioned their collections through auction houses, and it went for quite a bit less. I want to say 5 to 7 range, but again, I'm not too sure on the prices. So this one I would still say is worth at least 5, but maybe not. And the only reason it's up there is because it is such low pop, and there's a lot of collectors, including myself, who try to get the Charizards in Gem Mint 10, especially English Charizards, and this is one of them. And this Cosmos version is very tough to find in that Gem Mint 10 condition. When I purchased mine, I believe there was only 5 copies. I would imagine it's went up since then. So here we have a first edition Mysterious Mountains Charizard. I believe the first edition version is worth less than the Unlimited, but still does pretty good in price. I don't think I put the English Crystal Charizard in here just because I had the Japanese versions. Here we've got a Shining Charizard, Japanese Gem Mint 10. I haven't checked the price on this one in a while. I would think 5 to 10, but again, check all these prices because the prices have changed so wildly over this past year. I paid 11K for this one maybe a few months back. I won this off of eBay. This one's really tough again to get in the 10 condition because of the centering here on the back, and any little white nicks will show up very, very evidently on that red border. But this is potentially one of the very first Charizards that was ever printed. Machamp Trainer Deck A. I believe that this one should be a little bit more expensive than the Blastoise because the Trainer Deck A has always seemed to be harder to find. And this card right here, even though it's Machamp and not Blastoise, that's really the only thing I think that pulls away from potentially being worth more than the Blastoise. It is non-hollow just like the other one, and it says Trainer Deck A on the backside. Of course, A comes before B. Oh, I did put the English one in here. So we have the Skyridge English Charizard in a Gem Mint 10. And the only other version that there is, you've got the first edition Unlimited on Japanese, then you have the hollow and reverse hollow on the English side. Here we have the Expedition Charizard. This one had a high, I want to say, of around 15,000 or so. I mean, of course, there was a huge number put on it for, what was it, Liquid Marketplace. I want to say they put like low 6 figures or something crazy, but I would still put this probably in the 5 to 10. It's got a nice little swirl there on the side. All right, here we have a first edition Shining Charizard. I believe this one is still worth over 10K. Well, no, I believe some have went for 8 to 10K recently. So again, it's one of those things where we're in a time where if you've been around for 3 or 4 years, you've seen highs of a card like that between 20 and 25, and then you've seen them where they were before at 2,000, and they've come down by over 50%. Here we have a sample Pikachu. This is the last one that I have in PSA 10 for my personal collection. I believe that this card would bring in excess of 10K, but I've kind of been wrong on the sample cards because I bought a lot of these over time. I thought $1,000 for a card that there's only 100 of with a very confirmed release, even though it wasn't like officially a public release of that kind of thing. It was like play testing. I would think that they would have more in price, but I think because they borrow from certain artworks that have already been printed and they're not like super cool Pokemon, a lot of the cards don't bring in that premium. Here we have another, technically, I guess, non-TCG card, where I guess this would be more of like, these weren't the expert booster packs as we would call them when we were kids. These were, the ones that your grandma would buy you. But Sparkle Chrome Charizard, I think, I'm not too sure. I want to say around 10,000 or so. Here we have a Shadowless Raichu, and you wouldn't think that this would be worth a lot, but it's fairly low pop for the Shadowless base set hollows. I think the last offer I received on this was 14K, and I almost took it, but I ended up backing off because it did complete my Shadowless Hollow set, and then I would have to find another one. Alright, this is a regular blueback Charizard. It has the number in the top left. Probably around the 10K range. Could be less. I mean, we've seen these come back quite a bit in price ever since the no number fell from being the most expensive auction ever. It fell by like 90% or so. Here's the unlimited version of the Mysterious Mountains, or Sky Ridge Japanese Crystal Charizard. And it doesn't have that first edition stamp, so for this particular card, it does make it more expensive. Here we have a square cut, no stage Blastoise from base set. I believe this card we've seen at least 2 copies of. There's probably more out there. It's one of the very niche kind of cards, but it also it expands to Blastoise collectors, Era collectors. It's got square corners, so it makes it even more hard to find because it has the no stage there. So I'm really not too sure where something like this would go. It's a nice piece that I have sitting in my personal collection, but again, it could change very quickly. All right, so I'm getting ready to get into the top 10, and we're going to start off with this right here. So I did kind of go through and put a marker over this stuff because it is such an annoyance when somebody counterfeits your card with the certification number while you still have a real copy. It is a very cumbersome process where the fake ones are usually still out there, but you have to take your real copy and pay for it to get a new certification number, and it's a long process. But so I believe the most recent sale for a Charizard Gold Star was around 16,000 or so. So I would think that hopefully it would be around that price. But that's my number 10. All right, number 8 or number 9. Sorry, skip number 9. Well, look at that. Part of the cert number is showing, but most of these cards you could probably find if you needed to. I wonder if it did that with some other ones. But we have a Blastoise first edition from base set right here. I would think that this card's around 20,000 or so. It's the original Blastoise. It has come down, but not as much as some of the other cards. Next up we have Venusaur. I put this one at 8, roughly 22.5, and I think it should be worth more, but I believe that it's probably going to be worth around that price. Because I know someone who was recently offering one for 25K. I don't know if he got any bites for his Venusaur, but that one is so expensive because of the low pop, and there's a lot of collectors for the original base set and the original WotC Hollows. All right, we have the no number blueback. Again, this had I'm pretty sure it was confirmed sale of 493,000. Then it dropped to like 100 and some, and then I think there was a sale for like 30 some thousand dollars. So it dropped way off. I think it was sports card collectors. That's what I heard. I don't know that for sure myself. I believe a lot of people thought that this was the very first Charizard. It has the blue back, which means it's an earlier version, and this one doesn't have the number, so it's like the error. So it had a lot of things going for it, but this number is debated to actually be 1997. So we don't know for sure if I think it's a pretty well-rounded consensus that it's not 1995. But I don't know personally. I haven't researched it. That's just what I've heard. So I'm going to go with the Pokemon community consensus that it's probably 1997. Even though the card itself is printed 1995. I mean, we have Yu-Gi-Oh cards that were printed over a decade later that say 1996 in the bottom, right? All right. Next up, for number 7, I actually have 3 cards. So we have this T17. I'm thinking this is probably worth around 25. This one could go up. It's one of those cards that's really low pop, and that's why the value on it is varies widely. I paid 10K for this a while back when I believe that was like a record sale. Here we have a University Magikarp CGC 10. Again, I think this one's right around maybe 25,000. Not super sure on that. This one is more based on the rarity of the card, not the grade. And then also we have a Techno Charizard. Oh no, I have this one at number 6. Which card did I skip? Oh, the no number Charizard was in number 7 spot. So that was the 3 that was in the number 7. Where we go? This will be number 6. So I had all three of these at roughly 25,000. Which that value, again, a lot of these values could vary wildly, especially right now with the uncertainty of the market. All right, so we have the Techno Charizard. This is the most rare version of the Charizard of the Chromes. I think you can get 1 or 2 per box. There's 30 packs in a box. and there's 76, 77, 78, something like that. So it'd take at least 35 boxes, 36, 7, 8 boxes, something like that, if you wanted to make sure you got one of every chrome. And I mean, you could get lucky, open up one pack and find it. But this is a gem at 10, very low pop again. And I sold several of these for over 50,000, but I think I put the value of this one at 30,000. I think that would be a pretty safe bet for that card. But also tied at number 6, we have another base set holo with a smudged. Don't worry, I'm going to take these cases off of here. But it's a Chansey first edition. I have several standing offers for 30K on this card. At least they said that they were standing offers. I haven't talked to them in several months. But this has probably been one of the strongest base set holos in the price because, again, it's very tough to grade the Chansey, the first edition Chansey. All right, what do we have next? So now we're moving on to number 5. All right, so I have, let's see, there's that one and this one. So we actually have 3. So I'm going to do one trophy level card. So we have a Tropical Wind, and this one is graded CGC Gem Hit 10. I believe I put these at right around $40,000. Next up, we have a Shadowless Charizard. I paid over 100 for this one during the boom, but these have dialed back way, really far. We've seen some sales in the 60s and 50s, I believe, but safely, I think this one still would be worth at around 40,000. I think we've seen CGC 10s go for around 10,000. And then here's another one. We've got the Cosmos. So like this is a niche card for this position. We have a Cosmos Holo square cut CGC 10 Charizard. This one has a lot of potential, in my opinion, to go way higher, but this is roughly what I paid for it recently. So I think it was actually a little bit more than this if you factored in, because I did some trade. But I would think that that's a pretty fair price for a card like that, especially since the regular non-Cosmos CGC 10 is probably worth about 5. Then you add square cut to it, and then you add this Cosmos. There's only going to be a few of those out there. It may be the only one. I can't remember. I think there's at least one other. All right, position number 4. We have one card. We have this Tropical Breeze. I've got this one sitting at roughly $50,000. This is from the TMB deck. One of my favorite cards. Chase it longer than anything else. But this is the English TMB Tropical Breeze. There we go, blacking out the cert, but then I show it on the back side. But very cool card. One of the few trophy cards that I have. Well, I mean, I guess it's not a trophy. It doesn't have a trophy on it, but it's a trophy level card. I think this is one of the first English trophies that you could ever get, 2001. And I did have the original deck that had the energies and the Mantine that matched the 2001 deck instead of the 2002, because there was roughly 10 to 12 decks they estimate for 2001 and the same for 2002. All right, position number 3 at $60,000. I have a no rarity Charizard. Now it's possible that a few more of these in CGC 10 have auctioned since I bought this one. If that's the case, my price is off. I do apologize. If you're watching this years later, make sure you do your research, because prices can change pretty wildly. I know that one did auction for, was it like 80,000 or something like that? It was about the same time that everything transitioned from the 9.5 to the 10. I paid more than that. I paid closer, I want to say, to the 80,000 range, but sometimes these numbers they get mixed up. And so again, any of these prices and numbers that I give you, do your own research for the actual current market value for things. They could be up, they could be down. And right now, as I'm speaking, prices are trending down. So that's why some of the prices, I'm trying to make sure that they're kind of conservative. All right, next up, we're going to have a huge jump here. This is a Disco Charizard in a 10. And the last sale that I'm aware of, I didn't go through and see if there's any been done since this sale. There was an 8 that went for over 100,000. I don't know if it was paid for. That's just what it went for in that auction house. Don't know if it was privately transacted or if there have been others since then. But I put this at roughly 175,000. I think that if that 100,000 sale, I think it was like 114, was legitimate, jumping from an 8 to a 10, jumping from 114 to 175 is a reasonable assumption. When I traded for it, I did it on a higher valuation. But again, I think that would be fairly conservative for it. But very cool test print, holofoil pack background. This was cut from a sheet. If you guys have heard of Sean, he did a deal with David. They talk about it on Coffee Talks, and they had the sheet cut. I believe that. Yeah, I believe that was it. And then I ended up trading for this particular Charizard myself. All right, next up. So this is the first edition base set Charizard. And you guys probably are aware that this one would have been at the top of the list for number 1. Stick around. I do have an honorable mention that I want to show you guys. At 200K, I believe this is fairly conservative. We've seen sales in excess of 200K most recently. Several public sales, and I believe there's one in auction right now for over 200K. This one, I remember I had the choice between like 4 or 5 different Charizards, and I ended up going with this one, even though it's slightly off center, like it's thinner on this side compared to the other side. I like this one because of the condition. If you look on the back side here, it was so clean around the edges that I preferred the Gem Mint 10 grade as to describe the condition more so than the centering. It would be wonderful if I could have, no whitening around the edge and perfect centering. But this one right here does not have the perfect centering. It is good enough for me though. I mean, I chose this one because the other ones, while they may have had better centering, and they did have white. They did have like a white dot, which is within the allowable amount that you would typically see for a Gem Mint 10. So while some people would want to have the centering because it would make the front display look a little bit better, the back side, I went to look at it and I didn't see any white dots, so I ended up picking this one over the other ones. But yeah, so I believe that this one would be the number 1 card in my collection for a confirmed value of, I would safely say $200,000 on this. I am aware of some that have transacted for less than that in bulk deals. But now I'm going to show you guys, and before I show this last card, I do have like other Charizards. Like these would have made the list, but I didn't want to put cards that were the same grade within the video. So like the 9, like this 10 Charizard, I think they've been recently going for about 30,000 or so, and that's down. I paid way more than that for mine. So, but that would have made the list. But I tried to keep the highest grade that I personally own for each of those cards. Now this one right here is pretty cool. It's a CGC card. I'm going to show you guys what's going on here. You can kind of see the edges are roughed up on the sides. This one I'm not going to give you the price for. I'm not going to tell you how much I paid. Some of you may be aware of what the price was, but I'm not going to say it out publicly, mainly because I don't want to influence the market. If it ever does go up for sale, I'd kind of like to see where it goes. But it was very expensive. So it's the pre-release Raichu. And this is a card that I've been chasing for so long. And I didn't even think when David come out and said that he had 2 of them graded that this would ever be something that I owned. But he reached out to me and we ended up making a deal. And what I like about this deal is the fact that he got the card, he got the pre-release Raichu that he would want, and I got the one that I would want. This is the 5.5 graded pre-release Raichu, and he also has an 8. But as I understand it, this is the copy that honestly has the most provenance. It's the one that goes back the longest. When I got back into the hobby, this is the one that there was a picture of on that goes back to PokeGym days, right? And so there's a lot of provenance with it. Although my story that I got from, or the story that I received from a WotC employee does vary. I mean, it's completely different than the one that he was given from the people who, I can't remember if it was the guy, Boozer, who sold him this or transacted it, but the story that he received for the pre-release Raichu is completely different than the one that I have. I don't think anybody's really doubting that this is indeed a legitimately stamped, pre-release stamped Raichu, because it has a lot of provenance, and the fact that it has that provenance to me gives it so much more historical value. And his 8 has a lot of provenance as well. I don't know much about it. Sounds like it was something that was kind of discovered, and it similar to this one, it transacted privately years ago, and we didn't see them come about for a long time. Nobody wanted to grade them, and then CGC recently did grade both this copy and the other copy, and they put out some information on how they confirmed that they believe that this was a real stamp. And while I'm still not too certain on the backstory of how these come into existence, I was confident enough to purchase this card knowing that I believe that this is a real stamp. So it's gone into my personal collection. As far as I know, there are 2 copies that have surfaced publicly. I've been told that there are several others, but I don't know about those myself. I just heard rumors. So I'm curious to see, in the future, if more do come out, and if they're graded, what kind of provenance do they have with them. Like, thank you so much, David, for offering this out to me. I remember he gave me a call on it, and I was kind of shocked that he got them graded. First thing I said was, first off, congratulations, David, for getting them graded. And then, we kind of went into talking about the cards, and eventually he offered this out to me, and I think he took in offers from other people, and he ultimately went with the offer that I gave to him. And it was kind of cool getting this card in. The night I got it in, I was at church, and I was hoping that it wouldn't like just get left, but I had somebody here, and they picked up the card for me, and I ended up not even looking at it till the next day. I got the package, and I set it on my bedside, and then it was actually sitting in my car at school the other day, just sitting there. If anybody knew that something so expensive was sitting up there, they could have easily broke in and took it. But sometimes it's kind of nice just holding off and just waiting. But I had this card finally in my personal collection, and I'm gonna set it back. Again, no public sales data. I'm not giving you guys any of that stuff, but I do plan to hold it. And as far as we know, this one and the PSA or the CGC 8 that David has, those are the only two graded copies. Me and him both know what this right here sold for. So I'm sure that if he ever goes to sell it, or if I ever go to sell this, to somebody who's potentially wanting it, we'll have that in mind. But for now, this thing is sitting in my collection for a long time. I'm hoping that it'd be a nice grail, because this was the mythical card, right? Growing up, so when you got back into collecting, when you got online, there was the Illustrator shirt. That was like a confirmed card that you could get, that you could find. There was a backstory for it, but this was like the mythical card. This was the pre-release Raichu. This was a card that I wanted to find, because I collect the weirdest stuff. I collect FPO cards. I collect uncut sheets. I collect square cuts, errors. That's kind of the thing that I collect. So to me, this right here is like a huge milestone for my English collection, and it's kind of like the tippy top, right? It's like what I've known to be around in the hobby, kind of like as a myth. Maybe it's something that exists, but now I actually own a copy, and I've got it in hand. So thank you so much, David, for making this a possibility for me, and selling me the card. I hope to see that maybe more of these will come out. I think it would do good, especially if some kind of provenance, there was some kind of hidden vault provenance that would prove that these were something that was manufactured by Wizards of the Coast, without a doubt proof. I think it would be really cool to see that, but there are so few videos out there that display this card, that show the pre-release Raichu. Just type it into YouTube. You would think that there would be a lot, but there's not, and there's so few images. But you've got it right here in this video. You can see it. Might be the last time I show it. I don't know. It may just get tucked away for a while now. But I hope you guys enjoyed this top 10 list, even though this technically wasn't in the top 10, and it wasn't really a top 10 list. It was more like a top 50 and a long spiel about all kinds of stuff and why I think cards are valuable, why specific cards are valuable. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this was a pleasant surprise for any of you who hung on this long. I know it's a lot of me talking, just going through different cards. But as always, I really appreciate the support, and I hope to see you guys in another video.